I'm sure that you're aware that Doctor Who returned to our screens in 2005 in such a dynamic way, with fan favourite Doctor Christopher Eccleston taking the wheel as the gritty yet charming ninth incarnation of the iconic alien. So I decided to nominate the 5 best stories from his run as the Doctor. This is a series that I've wanted to do ever since starting this channel, and I'm finally going to kick things off here. My buddy George has graciously agreed to help me with this series and has a great nomination for an honourable mention. Okay, without further ado, let's talk Ninth Doctor stories, shall we?
Fantastic.
Alright, I know this may seem like a peculiar choice, and I know not a lot of people really rate this episode, but I do. This is the first sequel episode from the modern run of the show, in this case acting as a follow-up and companion piece to the incredibly amusing Slitheen two-parter from towards the beginning of the series. Here we pick up with Margaret Slitheen, who is operating undercover as the Mayor of Cardiff, likely tormenting as many Welsh people as she can. However, the Doctor only really finds her by accident. The TARDIS arrives in Cardiff and uses the Rift power to charge the TARDIS before travelling on to some more adventures. While chilling in a coffee shop and having a bit of a catch-up with Mickey Smith, the Doctor comes across her picture in the newspaper. As previously stated, she is the Mayor of Cardiff. I absolutely love the cheesy humour which comes from the attempted meet between them. The split coffee mug at hearing the title Doctor, along with the Scooby-Doo-esque chase montage scene, it's just so great. As we know from behind the scenes of Lux, RTD is a big Scooby-Doo fan, as he had Shooty watch lots of Scooby-Doo cartoons in preparation for the cartoon segment. I particularly enjoy the moments where the Doctor reverses the polarity on Margaret's teleporter, and we see her inch that much closer to the TARDIS team. It's just a bit of fun before the darker main plot, really. So what I think is great about this one specifically is the sit-down meal between Nine and herself. She makes the point that if she returns home, they will execute her for failing the Slitheen's mission previously, and she states that he would be her executioner in a way. Nine just sort of brushes this off. I think the beauty of the scene can only really work with Nine, who is war-torn, dark and distant, but the scene feels like it is filled with such nuance. I mean, just the motion of the Doctor sitting down with one of his enemies to discuss such subject matter is so unique. It's a slow burn, admittedly, and in a way feels quite slice of life in tone. I do like the debate that she has. Because she saved one human, she is automatically changing and becoming better. The Doctor knows this isn't true, and I love his claim that she just lets the odd person go to feel better about herself, which is true. Christopher Eccleston and Annette Badland are such a strong duo here, I love them. Of course, this is fake. She uses the Rift power in the TARDIS to pulverise the Earth while sailing away on the extrapolator that Jack has now installed in the TARDIS, while keeping Rose as a hostage. I think this is more fitting than an actual change, and the setup at the heart of the TARDIS was perfect as well. This episode is so great, I'll challenge anyone on that. Right, let's see. A horrendous loss of a family member at such a young and impressionable age, and your new best buddy who just happens to have a time machine. What could possibly go wrong? And what could the major repercussions be? Well, Father's Day answers all of that. Before diving into the major plot details, I would like to say that I found the scenes between Jackie and young Rose to be amazing. I think there is often conflict between these two, so it is nice seeing them reminisce and talk all things Pete. It's also very realistic for this specific memory to stick with Rose so dearly. It's a good catalyst for this episode. The wedding itself is also a really fun little extra and fits the narrative superbly. The humour of Pete getting the name wrong is also amusing. It also feels like the right kind of steps towards Rose wanting to meet her dad. It feels like much of the groundwork is there, not just from this one but the very beginning of the series. I love it when the Doctor figures out what's going on, and that she wasn't all that keen on travelling until he mentioned time travel, as though Rose has been taking tiny little steps towards this very moment across the whole series, and that's just so good. So, Rose saves her father's life. He was meant to be hit by a car. It's sad and sudden, but ultimately gets undone. The Doctor is furious about this, and rightly so. Rose messed with a fix point. Right, so if we look at this act from a modern viewer show perspective, I think the use of this episode and positioning is actually genius. There would be spectators asking why the Doctor can't meddle and change things. Well, this is why. Time can't cope and splinters. The dude who runs Pete over is stuck in a constant loop, and Reapers start attacking everyone in the streets. The Doctor wisely tells everyone to take refuge in the church as it's the oldest thing in range and should offer longer protection for them. Everything is futile though. Despite how annoyed he is at Rose, even calling her his catchphrase stupid ape line, he is ultimately too kind to tell her that the only way to resolve things is to correct time. Pete needs to be hit by the car. I like the sort of breadcrumb path Pete takes in realising this resolution. I think the Doctor's reaction to Rose almost picking up the baby version of herself and causing a paradox and another Reaper must have helped things. The moment Pete realises and says goodbye is so heartbreaking and acted perfectly from both sides. Piper gave such an amazing performance. I would argue this is probably the saddest episode of the season, but such a great one as well. As I said, it shows the fans why the Doctor can't meddle with fixed points in such a fun and engaging way, while adding character growth for Rose and even more world building. Well, here it is, arguably the best finale of the whole show and without a doubt RTD's best two-parter he has ever created. Well, the episode essentially kicks off at the end of Boomtown, where the gang are returning the Slitheen egg home when they get abducted by a bright light and ended up in twisted versions of popular game shows from well over 20 years ago. Things like Big Brother, The Weakest Link, and What Not to Wear. I've always loved this concept. It gives the show a slight meta edge. It's a shame this concept wasn't returned to. I mean, 15 Ruby and Belinda could have ended up on The Chase, Love Island, and Bake Off, but oh well. It turns out these games are a ploy as Satellite 5 has been overrun by the Daleks, and no, don't listen to Roderick.
Don't listen to him! There aren't any Daleks! They disappeared thousands of years ago!
He also didn't get his money, which in actuality is the real tragedy to this episode. While trapped in Big Brother, the Doctor is accompanied by Linda with a Y, who is like his pseudo-companion and could have become the real thing, but was unfortunately killed by a Dalek. I think what makes this one so good and such a tense finale is just how dire it all feels. Like the Doctor says to Rose, he's trapped and about to die at the end of the universe with no hope. I think the fact the Doctor makes the decision to send Rose home highlights to the audience just how diabolical the situation is. Whereas we see some more personal character growth for Jack. When we meet him, he's a con man and, in his own words, a coward. But now he's gathering troops to take on the Daleks. It's quite a fun moment for him. I think the story is quite a good character journey for Rose, especially the second part to the story. The moment of realization is great when she notices the phrase bad wolf and realizes the greater context, that whatever this is, it's still binding her and the Doctor together. I do think it gives some finality to her relationship with Mickey as she states there's nothing left for her here. I do see how difficult this situation must be, travelling with the Doctor, seeing all these great things and then just getting dropped back on Earth. It must be slightly discouraging. It kind of makes me think of the scene from Revolution of the Daleks where Yaz and Jack talk about this together. It's that sort of theme. She manages to get back and opens the heart of the TARDIS, literally becoming the big bad wolf. She erases all Daleks and saves Jack. This is a point that's always bothered me. Like, clearly she could have saved Linda with a Y, but chose not to. I love the interactions between the Doctor and the Emperor of the Daleks. All of the god imagery is done so well, and he literally believes himself to be a god, whereas the Doctor is the one to make the devastating decision of a god. Kill all Daleks, but equally kill a ton of human beings as well.
I'll do it!
Then prove yourself, Doctor. What are you, coward or killer?
Coward. Any day.
In the end, he saves Rose from burning up the time vortex, which in turn triggers his regeneration. He dies knowing Rose has helped make him a better man and a better Doctor. This is an amazing finale. Another incredible story for this incarnation. So this is actually Stephen Moffat's debut story for the modern show, and it is truly something special. The Doctor and Rose follow an object falling through the time vortex and end up in the middle of London during World War II. I always love the reveal to this setting. The Doctor gets up on stage and asks if anyone has seen a big object falling from the skies, and they all laugh it off like he's a raving lunatic. This short reveal scene ends with the war siren going off, at which point it all clicks in the Doctor's head and he realises what's going on. Meanwhile, Rose ends up dangling from the roofs of London, clinging onto a rope for dear life as the sirens sound. Just as she is about to fall, she ends up getting saved by a charismatic and enigmatic time traveller known as Captain Jack Harkness. He offers her a drink and a dance on his spaceship above London. It's also a really clever way to set up the nanobots, which act as a plot device as they heal Rose in this moment. In turn, the Doctor discovers a dark secret while investigating. There is this gas mask child who is scared and is seeking his mother. Only, if this child touches you, he infects you and you look just like him, as Dr. Solomon found out. It's basically Doctor Who doing a kind of zombie apocalypse about the actual apocalypse, or zombies in this case, occurring. The Doctor stumbles across a young lady called Nancy who broke into a stranger's house and serves a load of abandoned kids, and the Doctor a roast dinner, despite the fact she clearly didn't want him there. Again, Nancy's existence very much ties to the plot of this episode. She lies to the Doctor and claims to be the child's sister when she is in actuality his mother. She is quite literally the mother that this terrified little boy is looking for. He's trapped alone in arguably the darkest time in human history and he just wants his mummy, which is fair. Jack explains that he is a con man and that the falling object is a space hospital ship thing that he owns, and that the nanobots are malfunctioning. They believed that all human beings were supposed to look like the sick child with the gas masks and attempted to fix everyone. After correcting this, the Doctor exclaims that for once everyone lives. Jack flies his ship away, which is about to explode, and in that moment the Doctor saves him and invites him aboard the TARDIS. They all dance together to some historically accurate music, as the title suggests. This is another great two-parter and one of the best of the whole show. Right, my good buddy George will take over from here with a pick he believes is deserving of more recognition. Over to you, George.
Hello everybody, so let's talk about The Unquiet Dead, the third episode of Series 1. It takes our TARDIS team to the Victorian age, where they encounter Dickens, ghosts and gas. This episode was written by Mark Gatiss, famous at the time for The League of Gentlemen, a dark comedy which ran from 1999 to 2002, and had a film and stage show in 2005. And I think that clearly still has an influence on his writing here, due to the strange, deadpan bleakness of it. Gattis's Doctor Who scripts usually take some piece of British culture or folklore and twists it in a sci-fi way, be it the coronation in The Idiot's Lantern, Churchill in Victory of the Daleks, Robin Hood in Robots of Sherwood, and, well, many more. But those all approach their subject matters with much more joy and jollity, as opposed to this, which treats the situation with a morbidity that makes it very watchable to me. That's one of the story's strong points. Its ability to balance humour and horror. From the Doctor and Rose bantering with each other, to the Doctor's childlike excitement to meet Charles Dickens, to practically every line Charles Dickens utters. As well as helping ingratiate us with the characters, the humour also blends well with the storytelling, and helps keep the story moving at a quick pace. Sneed's deadpan dialogue establishes the ghosts, and that they're an ongoing problem. The Doctor and Rose's bantering tells us when and where we are, and Charles Dickens' wordplay, as well as his interactions with the cast, establishes who he is and helps establish the kind of person he is. It also means that when there are more serious or sincere moments, that they hit with the gravity they need. It's incredibly effectively done and incredibly tightly written. Of course, an important part of any script is the characters, and every character in this script works. It's a small cast, but that means that every character is well realised, and it means that their relationships and dynamics with each other are well established. Sneed and Gwendolyn work well off each other and manage to keep an air of professionalism until pressed where it breaks. The Doctor and Rose's friendship is well established, and this, to me, is one of Eccleston's best performances. His sarcastic jibes run throughout, and his sheer fanboyism at meeting Charles Dickens is infectious. But, when he needs to, lets it fall away to quiet moments of sincerity. This also has one of my favourite small moments from him when they discuss rehoming the Gelf. Speaking of which, Simon Callow's performance is incredible, managing to create a really strong sense of character and a believable arc within a relatively short time. Having him be the one who figures out the Gelf's weakness helps cement his intellect and is a nicely subtle way of honouring his work by having him fight ghosts at Christmas time. I'm glad that they didn't have this be what inspires A Christmas Carol, and rather happens in the later years of his life. It nicely parallels the story of Scrooge without drawing too much attention to it. It also looks visually very strong and still holds up. The colouring in particular really elevates the final scenes in the crypt, and I also really appreciate the simple makeup on the corpses. It manages to look both intimidating and frightening. This story really holds up, and I think is the highlight of Mark Gatiss' writing for Doctor Who, as well as one of the underrated high points of the first series, which is one of the greatest series in the history of the programme. I'd also like to take this moment to thank Ollie for letting me appear on his channel, so thank you.
Okay, so when Doctor Who first announced that it would be returning to screens in 2005, I'm sure a lot of classic fans were eagerly awaiting the return of the most iconic and threatening aliens from the whole show. Russell T Davies was struggling to strike a deal with the nation rights holder to these tin pepper pots, and thus we almost had a very different threat. Fortunately, the BBC were able to use them. So, in the very vast future of 2012, oh wait, is that the past? It's all a bit of a jumble now. The Doctor and Rose arrive in an underground bunker in the state of Utah, where the Doctor discovers what is essentially a museum for various alien artifacts and technology, including an old Cyberman head, which was a nice little Easter egg. Wait, does this technically mean that the Cybermen were reintroduced before the Daleks? This is also where we meet Henry Van Stat, one of the worst human beings to ever grace our screens on Doctor Who. He is the proud owner of this museum and proudly declares that he has a live specimen somewhere on the facility. The Doctor meets with the Dalek, the alien that Van Staten has been torturing for weeks that refuses to speak, well, up until it realises it is in a room with the Doctor. Van Staten quickly realises that he now has 2 extraterrestrials in his bunker and starts torturing the Doctor too. Rose feels bad for the Dalek. I mean, it essentially manipulates her and uses her DNA as a means to repair itself before slaughtering the guy who tortured it. The fact it used its sucker to crush his face is always horrific to me, even if the CGI is questionable now. Van Staten realises how dangerous this thing is, and more importantly that his life is at risk. So he releases the Doctor. From here on out it basically becomes everyone in the bunker versus the Dalek. It's no contest really. So what makes this so scary is the fact it's one Dalek, alone in a confined space slowly taking people out. That sense of isolation and knowing it could be anywhere is much scarier than if there was an army of them tearing this bunker apart. In a similar manner, it's what makes The Haunting of Villa Diodati such a good Cyberman story. It's a lot of people trapped in the dark with one Cyberman. The notion is terrifying. This episode also brings the much darker side to the Doctor to the surface as well. He is fully ready to take out this Dalek, what he believes to be the final one. Just eradicate it from existence. Rose in turn doesn't like this side to the Doctor and basically argues that the Doctor is no different from the Dalek, similarly to what the Dalek said at the beginning, and when the Dalek said it, it really fried the Doctor. But as we learn, Rose did more than just heal this broken alien. She gave it some emotion, some empathy, a sort of level of understanding that it has never experienced before and it can't cope. It no longer wants to exist. The Dalek basically just kills itself. I have always sort of seen this as a bit of a reflective moment as the Dalek became better due to exposure to Rose, in a similar manner to this incarnation of the Doctor becoming better as well. Van Staten gets his comeuppance, and after everyone that he has screwed over, he too experiences this. He loses his memory and ends up on the streets of Utah. I love that the Doctor doesn't even attempt to stop this. He knows that the Dalek wasn't the only monster in that bunker after all. This episode is unquestionably the best. Not only that, but the best episode of the strongest series of the modern show. So this episode deserves so much credit if you ask me. Well, that was our picks for the top 5 9th Doctor stories. What did you think? Please let us know in the comment section down below. As always, if you enjoyed this one and would like to stay up to date, then please hit that like button and subscribe. Thank you for the help, George. I will link your channel in the description, so please check out his great edits. I would also like to shout out the Olisnew crew. Right, so the next one in the series will be top 10 10th Doctor stories, so that should be fun. Until then, I will catch you all soon. Goodbye.